Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of the Crubcast. My name is Kevin. I'm your host for today's likely hyper-chaotic episode where we are scientifically, factually creating a number one ranking of the best PS2 games of all time for the PlayStation 2 console, including the PlayStation 2 Slim. I am here with a number of my guests. We have a 5-man panel today that's going to scientifically choose the best PlayStation 2 game of all time. We are all experts in every game ever released for the PlayStation 2. I will explain how we're going to go about this after I introduce everybody. We have 18 games we're going to go through in our roundtable discussion. And first up, we will say hi to the dancing man so that he can stop dancing, because I don't want to... No, actually, under him. Brody, the little minion guy. How
Hello.
are you today?
I'm good. I'm just here looking for Gru. Is he here?
He is, in fact, here. What is your experience with the games that we're going to be talking about today on PlayStation 2 broadly? We'll show those games off in just a moment.
I counted it up. I think I've played at least one in every round until the one round where I played all three.
Okay, so you've got a majority of these covered then.
Yeah, I have half. I have 9 out of 18.
Okay, we are experts in our field. This is science. Above me on the top right of your screen on the YouTube version, if you don't know, by the way, we also have a video version of this feed. If you're listening in the audio realm, go to youtube.com/crubofficial, /at crubofficial, because YouTube changed it. Chris, Mykonos fan, how are you doing today?
I'm great. I've sampled at least 10 of the games we're talking about today. Seriously played them, maybe like half of that, but I'm doing okay.
Okay. I will have to count my list. So while I do that, famous Twitch streamer JTart9, how are you, and how many PlayStation 2 games are you an expert in from this list of 18 scientifically chosen games?
I'm doing well. I'm doing very well. Been getting some good sleep recently. We got very lucky. There's at least one game in every single pairing we had to start that I have played.
Okay.
So there's at least one, and then there's one bracket that's all three of the ones that I've played as well.
Similar to Brody then. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I have just counted myself here. I have at least 12 that I would say I'm comfortable saying I've played. There are a couple more that I've sampled as well, but I think I have the most of all of us here, it sounds like. So we have a broad variety of interests here on the Crubcast, and we've chosen a list of games while Nico continues dancing. We've chosen a list of games, the consensus top 10 PlayStation 2 games, as well as 3 that are sometimes just outside of the top 10 or in the top 10 other consensus lists. So we took every major list from every major publication and forums. I made a community post on my YouTube channel, and I took what everyone said were the best from those and compared that as well and added games that we missed. A couple of the games that were just outside we then included, and then each of us chose a wildcard game that is still a game that should, well, with one exception, it is a game that should be considered a top PlayStation 2 game. So one of them is in here, and thankfully, with the way that this is set up, it's not going to go far. But yes,
You did it so dirty. You did it so unbelievably dirty.
I didn't do anything.
Sore, dude.
Nico, you have to continue dancing. You got to continue dancing for those that are watching the video version. I'm going to show really quick the bracket, the scientifically best PlayStation 2 game (real) bracket. This is the bracket that we are going to be debating and picking from. We will go over the games in just a second, but I wanted you to see that Nico is in fact still dancing. I have made sure of that. Hi, Nico. How are you today?
Oh, what's up, gamers?
You still hit the "What's up, gamers"?
Always.
Oh, that's so good. Oh, that's so good. How many of these PlayStation 2 games would you say that you have played or are an expert in or have dabbled?
Well, I am. I'm only an expert in one of them, but
Do you play on expert?
of course I do. You know what it is, baby. But I've played 4 of them on this list. I think 4 of them, but I know enough. I do a lot of I watch a lot of YouTube videos to absolutely zero people's surprise, so I know enough about
My
them.
opinions have tainted him.
It's like a lot of gamers. He's watched it on YouTube and hasn't played it. You know,
You guys watched a lot of Learning to Love PlayStation from Mykonos.
Oh,
yeah,
well,
that's
okay.
true. That's true.
Actually, that is true. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So I will go back to the list of games to show you the bracket again that we are going to be going through today. Our first round is going to be Silent Hill 2 versus SSX 3 versus Jack 1. Our second round is GTA San Andreas versus Sly 2 versus Katamari Damacy. Our third round is Bully versus Burnout 3 versus Metal Gear Solid 3. Then on the right side of the bracket, we have Ratchet & Clank 3, Up Your Arsenal, Guitar Hero 3, Star Wars Battlefront 2. Our next round is Shadow of the Colossus, God of War 2, and Crash Twinsanity.
Spot the Brody pick.
Believe it or not, it was God of War 2.
And then our final...
I'm actually...
Yes.
Sorry, I'm going to not say which games I have played during the course of this podcast, but if you can guess all 4 on Twitter, I will give you a retweet.
Great.
Incentive.
And then our final round for the first round is Spider-Man 2 versus Final Fantasy X versus Okami. And then each of those in the first 3 rounds on each side are going to go to a triple threat again in round 2. And then we will have a finals between the 2 that win on each side of the bracket. I will show this periodically as we finish each half of the bracket, I'll say. Or maybe as we go all the way through, we'll see. I do have a timer in place for rounds, so we are going to try and keep each round limited to about 8 minutes for at least the first round. The second round may be longer as we go, so that we're not going super, super long today. So hopefully you are excited for this. I did see, by the way, for those that are watching, we do have a live streamed version of these podcasts where we record, hang out in a pre and post show with chat, etc. It's every Tuesday at 7 p.m. either on our YouTube or our Twitch, which is twitch.tv/Crub_official. I did see someone in chat mention that Kingdom Hearts 2 got screwed again. So that was one that was just outside the top 10 that I thought maybe someone would include as their randomized pick. But with how tight the competition was and how much time we don't have, it did not make the cut. And also Nico has an implicit Disney bias. So I knew from the start that there was a good chance that it was not going to get far anyway. So scientifically, it is not the best PlayStation 2 game. So that's just,
I really want someone to make an edit of you saying with how tight the cut was and then just have Twinsanity and Kingdom Hearts on screen.
It's look, okay. You're not wrong. 10 Elements also in the chat, I will say, said no Resident Evil 4. I specifically took Resident Evil 4 out because there were a lot of games that were either exclusive to the PS2 or more known for their PS2 releases. RE2, I think, is generally more known for the GameCube version, the Wii version, the remake, every 1,000 of other versions. So I made the executive decision to take it out because it didn't really feel like a fair shake compared to if that was in, then you would have seen like not God of War, but something get cut off. And Burnout's
it's not in the spirit.
Yeah, like Burnout, for example, is much more of a PS2 game than Resident Evil 4 is. Is kind of the way that
when we do the GameCube list, Resident Evil 4 will be there.
Yes, yeah, and we'll probably do this again with other consoles. So let us know if you enjoy this topic and everything of the sort. So we are going to get started. I'm going to hit the round button, and we will open it up to the discussion. Again, the first round here. Silent Hill 2 versus SSX 3 versus Jack 1. So that is our first round. I will start with Brody. What game of those 3? Well, tell us about your experience with all 3 games first.
Well, that's easy because I'm only going to be able to do it with one of them, and it's Jack 1, which is... immediately brings up a great thing with the whole bracket, which is you pick Jack 1 out of the 3, and it's so frustrating because I can make a case for it, but it's going to be so much harder than if it was Jack 2 or 3.
That was the consensus best Jack game according to every list. Because Jack 2 is trash, and I'll say it. And Jack 3 suffers from having to apologize for Jack 2. So Jack X should have been the one that went in, but no one played that game because the discs were horrible and broke all the time.
Jack 2 was my Grand Theft Auto because I didn't play Grand Theft Auto.
That explains so much about you. I'm not going to lie. So you've played only Silent Hill. Chris, not Silent Hill. You've played only Jack 1. Chris, what's your experience with these games?
I played Jack 1. I didn't beat it. I got to the Spider Cave level.
Okay, so you were pretty far.
It's
at least,
fun.
Because Spider Cave is like late game, right?
Yeah, I got pretty close to the end, I guess.
Okay. Justin, have you played any of these 3 games?
I played SSX Tricky. That's the closest I can give you. I hate scary games, so I would never touch Silent Hill with a 20-foot pole. And I'm not a furry, so I don't play Jack.
We're doing this first round so dirty. Have you guys played it? No. Played a different game.
But the thing is, I could be like, oh, I played
Science.
Silent Hill 1, I played SSX PS3, but these specific PS2 entries,
SSX
no.
PS3 would not. I don't think would be like SSX Tricky is valid for SSX 3. I would say because they're very similar games. 3 is usually the one that's considered better. I actually like On Tour the most because On Tour had a full like mountain that you could go down from the top to the bottom the whole way.
That's rad.
And it was really cool, like open worldy type thing. Tricky is the one that people talk about more because I think it was an earlier PS2 game, so it had that nostalgia level that 3 didn't quite have. But I think if you've played one of the SSX games from the PS2 era, I think that's pretty valid towards your experience because they just kind of got better.
We're desperate for it anyway, so that will count.
Yeah,
I think to Jack 1's credit, I mean, it's an interesting evolution on that like PS1 3D platformer formula, especially with Naughty Dog effectively making a Spyro game. But the other thing is that like I think it was the first console game to have no loading screens.
Yes, it is very. I don't know if it came out before Metroid Prime in that regard. They might have both actually technically had that at the same time, but Jack was the one that was, I believe, revealed first. And the way that it did it was a lot more interesting than Prime was because the world design was you could kind of see another level out in the distance from the level you're in a lot more often. And so it was like both the draw distance and level of detail that they were able to pull off combined with then also not having load screens and having all their loads be built into the game.
It was a lot more interesting and effective than like Jack 2 and 3's method of we're going to stick you in an elevator and it's technically not a loading screen.
Yes, they did that one a lot. A lot of games did that at that point, actually. Like even like the Tide the Tasmanian Tiger games were starting to do that at that point. Every game followed in Jack and Metroid Prime's footsteps with that. Nico, what were you going to say a moment ago?
I still don't think Jack needed to have happened because we already had Long Ear Guy and a sidekick.
I got to throw out. Jack came out first.
I don't care. It doesn't matter to me.
Science.
I want to throw out, before you comment, science.
Science.
This is scientific.
Science.
This is real and accurate.
Great minds.
If you take this seriously,
mind meld.
if you take this seriously, we're right.
Yeah, well, to be fair, okay, take it seriously. I'm really drawn to horror aesthetics, and I'm also drawn to extreme sports aesthetics. I was a big Tony Hawk fan. I played SSX. Huge fan of, a lot of sort of the vibe surrounding the Silent Hill games as well. And so I'm just naturally biased toward these other two for a myriad of reasons, those being sort of the most prevalent that the aesthetics just sort of speak to me a little more.
Okay. I will say for me, I have played, I've dabbled in Silent Hill 2. I haven't played a ton of it, but I've played some. Wasn't my cup of tea mainly because I played the really bad remaster, I want to say. So that took a lot out of it, and I fully admit that, obviously. I've played a lot of SSX 3, and I've played Jack 1, 100% of that game in a day, like the first time I played it. I really enjoy Jack 1, even if it is a slightly better but also kind of poor man's Banjo-Kazooie. I think that game is... I think that the movement in that game is great. I think that I would have liked to see the movement be almost more... what's the word? Not like diegetic, but like more comboable. Like there are some move combos you can do, and Jack 2 actually kind of addresses this in the worst way. But like Mario 64 had a lot of cool movement chains you could do. It had movement gimmicks. Jack 1 had some, but not as many, and some of the eco powers, for example, they were very situational. And I think that they could have taken the idea of Jack 1 and made it almost more of almost a light Metroidvania if they had abilities that you unlocked with eco that weren't just temporary 30-second, I can jump higher.
There were some moments that I would almost consider, because there were moments where you had to uncork the sewer and then eco, you do that in like level 3 and then yellow and blue eco fountains would pop up back in old levels.
And that stuff was cool. Like there was a little bit of that. You're right. I really, really like SSX, though. I think that's one of the best sports games that's ever been made. Like, I think that game is what people say Tony Hawk is in terms of being a fun, replayable game. I've never cared that much for Tony Hawk as a series. I'm gonna start with Brody. of the three, I'm going to guess I know your answer, but which one would you say is the game that should move on?
Just mark me down. You know.
Okay, so it's Silent Hill. Got it.
God, no.
So Brody's for Jack. Chris?
It's rough because I think Jack 1 is all right. I believe the people who think SH2 was great and SX3 are great. But I don't know if it's authentic if I vote for something I didn't play for. So I guess I have to say Jack 1.
Okay. Justin?
I'm trying to like do mental gymnastics to like pick like the most like long-standing game, but all three of these games don't exist anymore. Like they don't make them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So like I'm
Silent
trying to think
Hill's
of like
getting that remake, right?
Remake.
That wasn't a rumor. That announced, right?
Yeah, but like they were making Silent Hills and that got canceled too.
No, but
Yeah,
Silent Hill 2.
Silent
Hill 2 is like a remake. Like that game's like coming out.
They're getting remade. Yes.
Yes.
Either way, I don't think that needs to be a factor.
No.
It doesn't. Yeah, like because I'm trying to like do some mental gymnastics.
The only
for that
game.
and try and pick,
there are 2 series that are from this whole list that are still existent. So like
yeah,
hey.
like I'm trying to pick like the best one, but in my brain it's got to be SSX.
Okay.
So it's the only one I played.
2 for Jack, 1 for SSX. Nico, what do you think?
2 for SSX.
Ooh, science.
I would, to be honest with you, I would have voted for Silent Hill, but I knew that would hand Jack the win. So I am voting for SSX, which I do
Nico's
think has,
voting strategically.
I do
You
think
have to
it
make
has
him go first from now on.
I do think it has a broader appeal than something like the Silent Hill, which appeals to a niche. Continue, Kevin. Sorry.
So what I will say is, if you had voted for Silent Hill, you would have ended up having to change your vote to be the tiebreaker because I was going to vote SSX. I think Jack 1 is very good.
Ooh.
It's very, I can't even say it's very influential is the thing. It's just kind of a good game, but there's a reason that game came out, and immediately after one of the games we're talking about next, GTA 3, not San Andreas, but GTA 3 came out right before Jack 1, and Jack 1's reviews kind of reflected that because everyone was like, oh, this is a really good game, but it's not really what we were looking for. They kind of made open world Crash Bandicoot, Banjo-Kazooie, and it was too kiddie, and everyone, like the gaming industry had just changed after GTA 3. So that's why Jack 2 was what it was because overnight everything changed. And so I think that Jack 1 on its own as a game is good, but the fact that it's also a very short game, you could rent that game and have 100% of it. SSX also is that way, to be fair, but SSX has a lot more replay value to me. So it was probably going to be 3-2 SSX either way. So I have good news for those that are snowboard gamers. SSX is the one that is moving on with a vote of 3-2 in our bracket here. So as you can see,
I was gonna say you can rent SSX and play it and be done with it through a day, but you're not gonna want to be done with it through a day. You're gonna want to go back.
And the
play
multiplayer is incredible. Like it's just it's got so much as Nico said, steez or Zaz, which is short for Zazzle.
It's short for vibrations.
Yeah, it's short for vibrations. So that moves us on to the next game in our first side of the bracket here: Grand Theft Auto San Andreas versus Sly 2 Band of Thieves versus Katamari Damacy. Nico, we're going to start with you on this one.
Right. Well, I do think that there is one game on this list that has a bit of a je ne sais quoi over the other two. But that said, there's some sentimental value for me to the other two. Katamari Damacy is got, it's just got something that other games don't have. It's got that charm, as Chris would put it, that really draws me in.
Only
it's one
Chris
of the only
has ever defined a game as charm.
Well, it's just one of his catchphrases.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really like the charm of Katamari Damacy, but Sly 2, we've been getting into the Bentley stuff recently, and that's been funny.
Bentley's character arc is how we'll put it to those not in the know.
Yeah. And
his rise and fall again.
This is science.
And then GTA had a lot of really good times playing GTA growing up. So
did you play
that
Andreas?
one? I thought okay. Well, I guess I already have said games that I played, so
it's okay.
that bit
There are
is
cops
over.
behind
But
you, so yeah.
Yeah, there are cops behind me, dude.
2-star, man.
One star,
No,
2-star?
I did not. I did not play San Andreas, but I did have a very good time playing GTA 3 on my PS2.
Okay. And to go back, I will say again, like, I think same console experience with these games to some extent is valuable. So I think if you've played a lot of GTA 3 or Vice City, even if you haven't played San Andreas, you can know that it's that, but more or better or bigger. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't.
And
yeah.
For what it's worth, this is a tougher call for me than the last ones.
Okay. Justin, what are your thoughts on these 3 games?
This one's gonna be weird for me. I only played Katamari. I never played any of the PS2 GTA games, and I never played Sly 2.
Holding off on Sly 2 for a year now.
Yeah, I never played it. So, I didn't play Sly 2 because, as we established from the last one, I'm not a furry.
And Sly 1.
You sure are defending yourself with that a lot.
Yeah, I was going to say,
that
sounds like something a furry would say.
Yeah.
It does, doesn't it? But I have to keep letting everybody know. And saying that, I was not allowed to play Grand Theft Auto until the Xbox 360.
Did your parents not allow you to play furry games either, or what?
They also did not allow me to play furry games.
No, it's because you steal things.
Are they ashamed that you're now a furry, or?
You know what? I'm not a furry, so they wouldn't know.
Do you keep it in a bin, Justin?
They've found
I like to think your parents are more accepting than you are, so.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I would hope so, but you never know.
What does that mean?
But I don't know. But all I can really say is Katamari Damacy. I never even finished that game, but I like it a lot.
The game's like 2 hours long.
I know. I never finished
What is with you and not beating games that are... What the...
Man took 8 hours, 8 months to beat Sayonara Wild Hearts, if we're generous.
I beat that
1 hour game
in an hour. I sat down for the charity room, and I was like, I got to play this game I got to practice, and I got to unlock the arcade mode, and I played it. And with cutscenes, it took an hour. Without cutscenes, it took less than an hour. It took this man 8 months.
That's worse than the Buckets Challenge.
Honestly, it is. It is actually. You know what?
I would argue that it's not, because I wasn't actively playing it for those 8 months. I played 30 minutes and then stopped playing it. And then everyone was like, hey, did you enjoy Sayonara Wild Hearts? And I went, I don't know. I didn't finish it. And they were like, what do you mean you didn't finish it?
That's a valid question.
The JTART 9 challenge.
Hey, did you watch episode 1 of Slip and Jimmy? Yeah, I got halfway. It's 3 minutes of episode. And then Justin finished and moved on. Great. Chris, what is your experience with these 3 games?
I didn't grow up with the PS2, so I didn't grow up with GTA when it was fun and relevant and modern. So I feel like if I went back to it, I wouldn't enjoy it. Katamari Damacy is my wild card pick. It's the one I wanted on this bracket. Well, this entire bracket, not this one. This one is unfortunate for Katamari. I think it is a very appealing game. It's very cozy. It's very fun. It's very, I think even still, and even with like 10 sequels that kind of just did the same thing over and over, I still think it feels kind of unique. There isn't really another game like Katamari aside from the ones that are just more Katamari.
Yeah.
Wonderful soundtrack. The aesthetic has only aged better and better, I think, as time has gone on, especially as that look has kind of come back into vogue over time, or come into vogue. But I can't deny that Sly 2 is probably my favorite game I played from the PS2. It took everything that I was really enjoying about Sly 1 and made it better. It's the perfect sequel in the sense that everything you liked about the first one is back and better. I really enjoyed the gameplay loop. I liked seeing more of the characters and seeing that they weren't afraid to do interesting things to develop those characters in a kid's platforming game. Atmosphere even, I really liked a lot. I can't really think of anything I don't like about Sly 2. Whereas even with Katamari, I still find the controls a little frustrating. Like, I look past it.
I'll give you one for Sly 2, and it's one that the whole series has. They never did New Game Plus.
Well, that would be nice, wouldn't it?
Because with all those powers and abilities, I would have loved... There's a mod for Sly 2 that someone made for the PS2, like if you emulate, that you can play Sly 2 New Game Plus. And I haven't done it yet, but I really want to, because that game with New Game Plus would have everything.
Yeah.
And 4 lets you go back and redo chapters and missions, and technically 3 kind of does too. So like they did address that, but like with 2, when you're done, you're done. You got to start a new file. And it would have been cool to like see those late game abilities more usable, considering that in Sly 1 you can replay every level. Brody, what's your experience with these 3 games?
Well, I mean, Sly 2 is just a perfect game. It's no fat, no filler, just gives you the story beats as they go, gives you like chapter by chapter, just cool stuff. I enjoyed like how they would use a chapter to develop a villain, and then the other chapter has you actually take them down. I absolutely loved how they gave special consideration to like the other characters and had them have their boss fights. Like
and
with
whole
Murray
arcs,
fighting
whole character
Rajan.
development.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Bentley leading up to facing Jean Bizon or whatever was like, oh, this is fantastic. This is actually how you would do a boss fight with this character. I mean, the fact that it all takes place in Canada is also a big weakness for me. And it has a train chapter. It's in Canada. It has a train chapter. There's even like a
Uncharted section, but like years before Uncharted 2.
Yeah, it's got like the kind of like a tournament arc, but like where other tournament arcs just like do like, oh, there's an evil team behind the scenes doing like, you know, bad stuff in the background to cheat. In Sly 2, you actually get to be the team that cheats. So that's that's just really cool. I don't know. It's pitch perfect start to finish. I can't, like, I've played Katamari, the remaster. It's like, oh, this is fun. This is like a neat little thing. GTA, not my thing at all. It's Sly 2 all the way down.
I was so prepared to come in here and give like a really deep, super, just war cry for Katamari, but it just wound up right next to Sly 2, and I just can't.
And as a reminder,
this is a waste of my time.
I would have backed you for what it's worth.
This is a randomized bracket. We did that because, you know, putting these games head to head by genre, you're going to end up comparing games that aren't similar no matter what by the end anyway. So doing it randomly gives some games a chance to move on and build that sort of grassroots support throughout the bracket, which is in fact how science works. Trust me. So my experience is I've played all three of these games. I played the least of Katamari Damacy, but I think I played most of that game, if not all of it. It's a short game.
Probably more than me.
Yeah, I mean, I played more than 5 minutes, so by default. So I really like Katamari, and I didn't play that until the remaster as well, actually. It's a game that I always had on my radar that it got kind of expensive on PS2 for a while, and I was like, I don't really want to buy that. And then
it had a really cool box art, too.
Yeah, and then the remaster came out, and was very cheap, and I think a friend gifted it to me, actually. And so I really enjoyed what I played of that. And I think that I would love more Katamari in the world. I know that they kind of have done more of the same with it again and again, like you said, Chris. But man, like the King of All Cosmos should have been in PlayStation All Stars. Like actually, would have been incredible. San Andreas
applause sound effect there.
San Andreas is one of the best games ever made. It doesn't hold up as well as we would like, obviously, because of the mechanics and everything. But that game took everything that GTA was and made it so far and away. Sorry, I don't know if that's coming through. My dog is whining. Give me 1 second.
Dog moment. I'll also
thank you.
If I need to vamp more. Oh, you're good? Okay.
I told him to shut up and he's good. Okay. For those that are listening, I just got a dog and he's on a cone and sad. So he is chilling underneath me and sometimes whining. So for the audio listeners, apologies if that comes through. Anyway, San Andreas is just an incredible game. It's funnily the game with the least amount of canonical kills by a protagonist. They handled that story with a lot of grace, all things considered, considering they were still also trying to make the game controversial. They made CJ the best GTA protagonist, full stop. Maybe Nico Bellic is close, but otherwise, like CJ, they could have done a lot of bad with CJ, considering that it's a bunch of British writers writing Los Angeles Rodney King era gang war, crime riot stuff. Not that Rodney King was involved in gang wars, obviously, but it's the last mission of the game is a Rodney King riot analog. So I think of that a lot. Like the game did a lot of things that permanently changed the game world, which like the riot stuff is really interesting because you just, for that final mission, until you do that final mission, which is a hard mission, people are just running around, buildings are on fire, people are stealing TVs. Like it's like, I had never seen anything like that in a GTA game before, or in any game before at that point. I shouldn't have been playing the game at the age that I was, but I turned out okay, so it's fine. But it was really cool seeing them handle a lot of nuanced topics in a way that is still hokey and obviously not meant to be this gripping story, but they did it in a way that's just really good. And then if you go back, you're baffled at how small that world actually is for how big they made it seem. Like that first, like Los Santos, the first of the 3 islands, is about as big as other GTA games by itself. They made that game insanely massive. But if you go back, you're like, oh, this is kind of small. How do they make this seem so big? How do they make this seem so like otherworldly big? It was just an experience. And there's a reason it's the highest selling PS2 game of all time. There's a reason it was the highest selling non-packed in game of all time up until like Minecraft. And then GTA 5 now has blown everything out of the water. Yeah, no, it's such a great game. But
aha, there it is.
Sly 2, it might be the best PlayStation 2 game of all time. I think. Like there are a few games that have an argument against it, and GTA is one of them. But GTA has that issue where the mechanics don't quite hold up super well. You know,
the entire time you were singing GTA's praises, I was just thinking that the whole time. I'm like, yeah, but does it have the scene at the end of Chapter 8 in Sly 2 though? Wouldn't they? I mean, I don't want to spoil it if you haven't played it, but it's a pretty emotional moment.
Yeah,
you know, that's classic storytelling in my head.
And the thing with GTA San Andreas, also, I'll say, is like the stories of the first 2 games were okay. Like Vice Cities isn't that good because that was supposed to be an expansion at first, and so that was an issue. Was that they made that game in like 9 months, and so it's very unfinished narratively. And if you play that game, you're like, what the fuck is going on? 3 is very hokey because it's meant to be just generic crime drama game. And 3 is contextualized better by the rest of the games after that, in terms of like they reference those mob families and stuff. San Andreas is a wholly contained game. You don't need to play the other games to understand it, and it tells a complete story, which I think is very valuable because neither of the other 2 I really ever felt did, or if they did, they were doing it in a way that was very surface level crime drama. And having like that familial thing, having the betrayal, you know, mild spoilers for all of these games, of course, as you would have known going in, listeners. But like the classic Big Smoke storyline is really, really good. It's like not fully explained, like it's got holes, but like it's really cool. It's really cool seeing how that game's story goes. But again, Sly 2 is just such a magnificent game. And the fact that it takes everything that Sly 1 did and improves it so much more than San Andreas took everything that those other 2 games did and improved that, I would say Sly 2. Because
it's just so fun. Like from moment 1, you're just invested in what's going on in Sly 2's intro, right?
It's a playable cartoon in the fullest sense of what you'd want a good cartoon for kids to be, because they play with the characters, they develop the characters in a way that feels organic, and they nail the episodic structure. Everything about Sly 2, every mission in Sly 2, if they turned that into a hypothetical Sly TV show, because we know that was never in production, if they had done that and gotten to Sly 2, every mission of that game is a 15-minute episode. You could do the 11-minute structure that every children's show tends to have nowadays. You could make 11-minute episodes out of every single mission and tell each chapter or 2 as its own whole season. And you would cover, 22 episodes with that. And it would work because it's so well paced and so well structured that it would fit a completely different medium with little to no changes.
One thing that I never appreciate, I mean, I always appreciated it like without knowing that I was, but after having played those games in my childhood and then later gone on to watch the Ocean's 11 trilogy, I went back and looked at Sly and I'm like, oh, they like this has the panache, the style of these movies.
Yeah.
It is like, these are heist movies through and through, but like troped down to the wire, like directed perfectly. They're absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. And you can still see Sly's DNA, literally in every Sucker Punch game since. Like the code for Sly's tail is, fun fact, the fabric waving from Ghost of Tsushima is just that. It's just that animation, but like adjusted. And like that's really cool to see that DNA still holds through for a series that did not sell well. And that's the thing to me, is like Sly 2, for as good as it is, did not perform that well sales wise. Like it did well. It did like 2 million sales, give or take, which is really good. But a lot of that, again, like with Sly 1, came as a greatest hits game where it was $20. And it's a travesty that game wasn't consumed more. Whereas everyone who's played San Andreas, most of them are never going to play the story. You can't avoid Sly 2's story. And that's what I think makes it the better PlayStation 2 game, because multiplayer mayhem is great. We're going to get into that soon. But
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do we know how much Katamari Damacy sold?
Off the top of my head, I don't, but probably in the million or so range, if that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That sounds generous even then.
I was going to say, to get to my vote, I think that San Andreas, you kind of have a perfect bracket here. Because you have something that was very niche in Katamari Damacy, but charming. You have something that was like the biggest thing in gaming at the time in GTA. And then you have Sly, which slots in right perfectly there in that middle ground. And it hits the charm without hitting the mass appeal level of what I would call retroactive flanderization in terms of GTA type of memes. And so I would vote for... I'll throw my vote to Sly as well. Not that it needs it.
I did check Katamari sales. It was 0.7 million, give or take, according to what I could find.
That sounds
right. It undersold in Japan by a lot from what they expected.
So definitely more niche than something like a Sly.
Easily, yeah. I mean, Sly
700,000 total
was a rare game where its sales increased game over game because they made a Danish dub for that game. And that actually led to, it's one of the rare games that got a Danish dub. Finnish dub. I'm sorry, Finnish dub. And that led to a bump in sales that made that game more and more popular there between 1, 2, and 3. Justin, where would your vote go?
Everything you said is very swaying. My vote is going to Katamari Damacy. I think that game is a game that I actually played. And I'm still not a furry.
Okay, well there you go.
Chris, where would yours go?
It's very scientific. I have to go with Sly 2.
Okay.
I think even if I'd played San Andreas, I'd still vote Sly 2.
Okay. Brody?
Chalk it up, baby.
Sly 2. Sly 2 with a 4-1 win. As probably expected, honestly. Let me swap us back over to the results screen here so you can see us move Sly 2 onward. It's a shame that GTA didn't get a chance to get farther, but man.
I think it's right where it needs to be.
It's a shame that Katamari Damacy didn't get a chance to get further. If anything,
that's always the bridesmaid type game. I don't think it would have ever gotten that far.
It's tough, yeah. Any part of this bracket that it would be in, it would have a really tough time of getting out.
Yeah, I just think it has a good concept.
So we're going to move along. That one took a little longer because we all sang Sly 3's praises for a long time.
Yes,
so
Sly 3.
This will be the rapid fire round for the games that clearly deserve the least amount of time. Clearly. We have Bully versus Burnout 3 versus Metal Gear Solid 3, the Subsistence Edition specifically. Not that really matters too much. So we will start, Justin, with you. We're going to start right in the middle. Which of these 3 games have you played?
I love Burnout. Burnout is it is my favorite racing game of all time. Like the entire series of Burnout, just the carnage, the mayhem, everything about it. I love it. But Bully was my Rockstar game on the PlayStation 2. That was the one that I was allowed to play because that was one that was not GTA, but was still fun. Rockstar kind of had that shooting gimmick. It was a Rockstar game. Okay. So I really, really, really like those 2 games. I have not played Metal Gear Solid 3. I've only ever played Twin Snakes on the GameCube. So I have no input on that. But
science.
What I will say is I think that Bully, while being probably a better thing, a better game altogether compared to something like a Burnout, it unfortunately never got its time in the sun. We keep hearing rumors of a Bully 2 sometimes happening, sometime maybe, but we never really get it.
I don't think that's a knock against the game, though.
No, it isn't at all.
I don't think
and the same thing with Burnout,
honestly.
And the same thing with Burnout, too, because I love Burnout Paradise, but we just keep getting remakes of that.
Or
we don't get a new Burnout
instead.
Yeah.
Chris, what are your experiences with these 3 games?
I haven't played Bully.
Really?
Really? I barely played Burnout 3. I got in with Revenge and then really loved Paradise. I would still boot up Paradise right now and have a great time with it. I kept meaning to go back and play more of 3 because I know what's there. I do really like it. Just never made time for it, right?
Yeah.
But MGS3, I've played through a few times and I do love it quite a bit. it's been a long time since I've given any of my time to Metal Gear Solid, just because that's been the weird series to be into. Right, due to everything going on. Yeah. So at a point, I just kind of distanced myself from it, just to preserve memories, kind of deal. Right, but it has so many intricate and weird one-off little interactions and things along the way, alongside the story. I really enjoyed. So I love MGS3. It's been a while since I've really engaged with it, so I'm real fuzzy on a lot of it. But I remember really enjoying my time with it.
Okay.
Above these other two that I haven't really touched.
I will go next because I usually go last. I have played a decent bit of Burnout 3. Again, I played 4 more so. 3 and 4 are very similar games, though, so I don't think that's really a knock on 3. It's just that's the one I had. Burnout is an incredible series, and I fully understand why we haven't gotten another one. It's really hard to make good car chaos explosion-y stuff and do it with licensed cars. So kind of the issue. A little bit. They have to make their own cars, which costs probably just as much as licensing cars for like a Forza, for example. I am not a huge Metal Gear guy yet. I just never had them, and I've been meaning to pick them up for years. I mean, I have them now, but I'm meaning to play them for years. But I just haven't sat down with them. I haven't really had the time or whatever to sit down with them, and so I will feign. I will admit ignorance to Metal Gear Solid 3. And then with, what was the third game? Shit.
Bully.
Bully, thank you. Bully is another game. I think that game is probably a better Rockstar game than San Andreas, but San Andreas is a better Chaos game, if that makes sense. Bully, the way that game tells its story is, again, really, really, really good. And the chaos you can get into is much less so. So you're more likely to engage with the story to some capacity. And I think that game, for the drama that it caused, with random figureheads saying that this game is going to lead to kids bullying each other, and then the story that it tells being very much not that, where it's like saying, hey, don't do that. Like, hey, like, don't just beat people up. Hey, we should stand up for the nerds. Hey, we should stand up for each other. We're all a team. Like, it's a very positive game by taking a kid that you think is going to be this delinquent bully, and you can still beat kids up if you want to, but you get in much more trouble for it than you would in GTA, where it's a slap on the wrist. Here it's like this kid is, only a misfit because his mom doesn't care about him, and he's got his 19th stepdad. It's like one of those situations where his parents are just shoving him off to this boarding school, and it's really cool seeing how that game develops its story and puts you on each group's side bit by bit, so that it's not like there's one bad guy, and even then he's kind of like a sympathetic bad guy. I think it's a really, really good game. I think that if I were going to pick, I would go for Bully, only because I haven't played enough of the other two games, but also Bully was the game that I was going to put on here anyway. It was between that and one more, and then Bully was one of the ones that made like the outside top 10. So I think I would end up saying Bully. Brody, what about you?
Metal Gear Solid 3 is an interesting pick that you have in this bracket, because it is my least favorite of the original 4 Solid Snake Saga Metal Gear Solid games. However, even the worst Metal Gear Solid game is still a masterpiece. So it's like, I've never played Bully. I've only played Burnout Paradise, which is fantastic, but that's not what this one is. I have to give it to Metal Gear Solid 3 because it's still from the moment you start that game and you get hit with Snake Eater all the way to the end where you're fighting the boss and just like all of those moments in between. It's the weakest pick in the whole bunch of Metal Gear Solid games for me, basically just because a lot of those characters don't get to develop over the course of the series, because, with the exception of Big Boss. Yeah, well, even when you get to the prequel games, they basically have a new cast of characters. Like, they're not using the Metal Gear Solid 3 ones. They're using Ocelot and Big Boss, but that's basically it. They get Kaz in there, they get Huey, those are all Peace Walker editions.
Yeah.
Which are the big characters everyone knows from 5. Paz, Doctor Strangelove, all that. So 3 has always been in this weird spot of you have to just appreciate those characters in that specific game, which is fine. And they're good enough to do that. But I never connected with the narrative of that game quite the same way that I did with Solid Snake's events in 1, 2, and 4.
Yeah.
But still, absolutely fantastic game. I gotta give my vote to MGS3.
And Buckle, what about you?
So I've had all the 3 of these games described to me.
Science.
And yeah, science. And one of so I'm ruling out Burnout right away because open world bad.
It's not open world.
It's not open world.
Is it not?
Burnout Paradise is open
only
world.
Paradise. Only
3
Paradise
is just mission based, blow stuff up and race.
Oh, interesting. Still ruling it out.
You like racing games? Ruling it out.
I do traditionally like racing games. I was more of a Need for Speed kid.
Same.
I played Pro Street was the one that I really played, but Carbon was the one I played on the PS2.
Carbon
so I was more of a Need for Speed kid. Yeah, Carbon was bad. Pro Street was my favorite.
I like Pro Street a lot. I lost my save file once because the power went out right as it was saving after a race, and I had to restart the whole thing. So out of pure spite, I 100% of the game like within 2 days after that because I was like, piss off. Most Wanted is incredible.
Remind me to talk about Pro Street in the post show, but Bully I've had described to me. I think the concept of playing as sort of like a truant Bobby Hill was not super appealing to me aesthetically. But I think one of our close friends had described Metal Gear to me, and it was very compelling and enthralling to me, and it is an aesthetic that I can get behind, an aesthetic that I can trust. And I also think, for what it's worth, the fight with the End is a super cool concept.
And Metal Gear's full of those too. Like that's one of those things that is part of why I really want to dedicate time to it. But I know the way that I have to exist nowadays is a lot of those longer form games. I end up if I'm going to do them, that's going to be for content. So
and
Nico, for the sheer creative force. 1 second. For the sheer creative force behind the game, I am voting for MGS3. Continue, Brody.
Well, I was going to ask when you're praising the End there, are you praising it for the actual fight of like fighting the sniper in the woods, or are you praising it for like the secret technique to beat him, which is start the fight, leave the game for 2 weeks, come back, and he's dead?
Well, the answer is yes. The answer is yes. Yeah. I like both. I like the concept. I like the creativity behind that method, and I was a little long-winded there, so that's all I needed to say. Voting for MGS3.
Like this group to play at some point and get back to, because like all the way up to like the final input you have in the last boss fight of that game is just especially plus, that last input, man.
I generally enjoy stealth games.
Yeah, I know why I will really enjoy. Like I've played a lot of Metal Gear Solid 1, to be fair. Like I said, I haven't played a lot of it. I've played half of it, I want to say. I've played most of Ground Zeroes, some of Phantom Pain.
I played some of that too.
I've played Death Stranding, which is Metal Gear Solid with piss, so that counts.
Oh, I've played that one for sure.
Metal Gear Solid 3, I believe, is the winner with at least 3 votes. Justin, yours was for Burnout?
I would put it for Bully. I like Bully a lot.
So we got a 3-2 because I'm not going to move from Bully just because I want to give that game some love, and Metal Gear already won. So
let the record show.
Yeah, for the record,
we need dissenting opinions here.
Sequels are the only games that made it out of the left side of this bracket. Excuse me. So that's pretty cool. The next game here, as I move this out of the way. The next bracket here on the right side is Ratchet & Clank 3 versus Guitar Hero 3 versus Star Wars Battlefront 2. We will start with you this time, Chris. What are your experiences with these games?
Get me out of the way early, because I don't have much to say. Ratchet 3 is my least favorite of the original 3 Ratchets, but it's still Ratchet, so I like it. I don't have any really complex or nuanced thoughts about it, honestly, especially because I don't really remember it. I was playing the series basically back to back, and it just happened to be a casualty of like, oh, it's more of this. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So it's like a good thing, but I couldn't really appreciate it when I was playing it at the time. Guitar Hero, I guess, playing one Guitar Hero means you've kind of played them all, right? So I played a lot of Guitar Hero 3 Wii. Which Guitar Hero is this? It's like cut off on the end, so I'm like,
it's 3 Warriors of Rock.
This is
Yeah,
3.
yeah.
I played so much Guitar Hero 3 actually, but
Yeah.
it's a weird thing where it's very novel and it's cool and it's like an external thing to the game, what it could do socially and bring people together, I think is very interesting and cool. But most of the time I was playing it by myself alone. So yeah. And I never played Battlefront 2. I know nothing about those games other than people like them. So
Okay. Justin, what is your experience with these 3 games?
This is the toughest one for me because this is the one bracket where I actually have played all 3 of them.
oh.
And Ratchet 3 is really good. Probably my favorite of the ones on the game on the PS2, just because I feel like that one's more focused, and it tells a much better story. And I really like Nefarious. Nefarious is really cool. This is also coming from someone who hasn't played anything past Ratchet 3, so maybe Nefarious will grind on me more. Well, also that, but he'll wear me down a little bit more as I've seen him more in the later games. But Guitar Hero 3, I absolutely love Guitar Hero 3. I think it has one of the best set lists of any Guitar Hero ever made, except for, I think, Warriors of Rock on the Xbox 360. But that's not on PS3, so it does not matter in this discussion.
It's also not on PS2.
It is also not on PS2. It is phenomenal. Guitar Hero 3 had Slash, had the guy from Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah, Tom Morello.
Yeah,
It
it introduced guitar battles. It introduced being able to go against someone and then like you're playing one part of the song and they're playing the next part of the song, and it was sprinkled into the story mode of the game. And
Through the Fire and the Flames, Hysteria. That was like the thing back then, right?
It has that. Yep. It finally got a Dragon Force song. That was what everyone was begging for the last 2 Guitar Hero games, and it finally got Dragon Force. FCP Remix was great in there. Devil Went Down to Georgia had a really good remix by, I think, Dave Matthews Band. That was really good too.
What?
Star Wars
Dave
Battlefront.
Matthews?
What's your experience with that?
I love that game. I played Galactic Conquest. I played Galactic Conquest on Star Wars Battlefront 2 with my brother all the time. And Galactic Conquest is the one where you have the 2 cruisers on the map and you have to try and fight against each other to take over the whole thing.
Yes. It's so good. It's one of those things that I'm so shocked that the other games never, like the
no
EA
one
games,
ever did it.
EA games never came around to it.
And I'm like, it's such a good mode. How did they not?
Yeah.
This is the only way I knew how to what happened in the actual Star Wars movies, because I never saw any of the Star Wars movies. This is the only experience I had with Star Wars. It was awesome going into Mos Eisley and having all the Jedis and Sith fighting against each other. That
Jedi
was really
battles.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. People with the guns were useless. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
It was also my first experience playing online, because we had the broadband adapter for the PS2.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we played a lot of this online. It was great. Just this is the toughest one for me personally.
Nico, what are your experiences with these 3?
Conversely, this is absolutely the easiest for me, hands down. I mean, Guitar Hero 3 did so much for music. It did so much for the culture. And I think it really brought people in to this thing that I love. And this thing that ostensibly many, many people love as well. I think that Guitar Hero 3 was in itself a tastemaker. And I don't know that we've seen that type of cultural influence, finger on the scale. We're going to get people to invest in these artists or in this, sort of community, right? Otherwise in gaming, I don't think we've seen that type of influence. Maybe Fortnite, right? But outside of that, for the PS2 era, Guitar Hero was the tastemaker. It's the Siskel. It's the Ebert. It brought people. This is a playlist that people, including myself, still listen to this day, of amazing songs that stand the test of time, that have stood the test of time, ones that were maybe not as well known. There are some deep cuts on Guitar Hero 3, like like FCP Remix that Justin referenced earlier. And on top of that, right, like, they went into different, like, it was rock, right? But they went all over the place. And I really think it helped to open up people's minds to a lot of new sounds, new emotional experiences, and it created a connection unlike any other to the medium of music for gamers that may not have been there otherwise. And on top of that, it had the mass appeal outside of gamers, to Chris's point, because it brought people together. The Tom Morello guitar battle was radical. The Slash guitar battle was radical. The Lou guitar battle was radical. Yeah, and of course, like Chris said, Through the Fire and the Flames, hectic, everything. I legitimately, I don't think they would have been as much of a cultural staple as they were had they not had this song in Guitar Hero 3.
I will jump in next to add on to that. One of the things that's fascinating about Guitar Hero 3 is, and all music games, they can't really exist in the modern era because those games can get delisted now, or
Correct.
The music licenses can run out. This was back when things were a lot less expensive, I would argue. Because it was, it's a dumb video game and it might increase our sales, sure. Now you would need to have much more pull in the industry to pull that off, and you would only have it for 5 years, and that would be a lot harder.
Got to negotiate streaming rights for all the weird Twitch stuff that might happen. And
like these games can't exist in the modern era, and that's kind of a shame.
Yeah, true. I mean, Guitar Hero 3 was a once-in-a-lifetime event to that point.
I would say Rock Band 2 was more so than that, because
twice-in-a-lifetime event.
Yeah.
Even when they've tried to bring them back, it just hasn't really worked, right?
No.
Rock Band 4
Guitar
was
Hero,
yeah.
but
yeah. Like at that point, this was the pivot point by which this was the last Harmonix game, right? Before they moved on to Rock Band.
I think so.
Because
they might have done World Tour.
They might have done. I'm not sure, but there's
World
a reason.
Tour was
There's a reason that they banged out 4 games in 3 years. I'm not surprised it was but there's a reason that those two, like Harmonix, just has always done this stuff so well, and 3 was kind of the end of that era before Activision really started going ham on milking the hell out of Guitar Hero and killing the franchise dead within like 3 years after this.
So classic Activision.
This was the pinnacle of that. Star Wars Battlefront 2 is such a goddamn good game. It is so good.
So good.
It is so good. And I am still one of the few games where I'm angry that we didn't get the Star Wars Battlefront 3 that they were working on. At was it Pandemic Studio? Was that the name of the studio? I forget.
I think so. It was the one with the yellow mask, right?
Yes. I think it was them, because they shut down sometime around when this game was in alpha and then got canceled. But like that was the first game. Battlefront 3 would have been the first game to take you into space from ground battles and to and from.
That's nuts.
Like in the No Man's Sky kind of way, where you could go up and down in real time. And that is wild, because this game, like Battlefront 2, had full space battles. It had full, like, you could go into each of the ships and invade the ships.
Yeah. I didn't even talk about that. Yeah, it had the internals of each ship. It was so good.
There were so many maps. The Galactic stuff the Galactic Conquest was so incredible, because it was like 30 levels or whatever, and you would go and like play chess and go and take different pieces of every planet, and they gave you like rewards and skills to make it easier so your troops would respawn faster. There were times that I went through and I would be down to like my last soldier, and I would just be like, it's like 20 on 1 and they still have respawns, and I would fight my way through it and make it work. It was just there's so many moments in that game that just no shooter has captured quite in the same way. And it's such a shame that EA's Battlefront games were so mid to bad, because they had promise, is the worst part. They could have been really fine to good games, and they just, oh man, it hurts. It hurts that we don't have another one of those. I was never a huge Guitar Hero fan personally. I probably would be more so now. I was just I didn't have when those games came out, I did not have a concept of rhythm yet because I was in the adolescent years where I didn't play music. So I had toddlers have dangly toddler arms. When you're in like that adolescent puberty years, you also have that where you how you trip all the time and you're not sure like what your existence is. And
I can corroborate that because I played the actual guitar before I played Guitar Hero. And because of the childhood noodly arms, I was better at the actual guitar than I was at Guitar Hero. So I understand that.
And so I struggled with that for a long time with Guitar Hero and Rock Band. And I'd be better now because I've also played more music now than I did back then. But that was never my cup of tea. I thought it was cool. I liked it, but I was like, whatever. Ratchet and Clank 3, if you put a gun to my head, is one of my top 2 or 3 favorite games of all time, even if I don't think it's the best Ratchet and Clank game. Although I still I'm conflicted on it, but the reason it's on this list is it's the highest rated Insomniac game to this day. So you could say 1 or 2 over it, but this was the one that got the most people saying, yeah, this one, because this is what people wanted at the time. People wanted more of the shooty bits, and that's what we got. And then retroactively now people have been like, actually, wait, no, we want more platformy bits because they're less common now.
That was always my thing with it, and I was surprised to hear Justin say it was more focused, because I always felt like Ratchet 3 is in this in-between stage between 2 and Deadlocked, where it doesn't really know what it wants to be at that time. Because once you get to Deadlocked, you go, okay, this is what they were trying to do. This is the shooter they were trying to make with that game. Whereas 3 still has some of those elements. Now, I prefer 1 and 2 for their platforming focus. But I enjoyed Deadlocked more than 3 as like a shooter. So 3 comes in this weird spot of like, same thing with Metal Gear Solid. My least favorite Ratchet game is still a masterpiece. But I do think it's the weakest of the PS2 games. But I am still giving it my vote this round.
Okay, well, that got that out of the way. 3 was, I was going to say, that's probably where my vote has to go. As much as I think Battlefront 2 was the game that was my wild card that I put on. It's the quintessential Ratchet and Clank experience, and there's a reason that they've come back to that well so many times of Nefarious and Quark and the storylines of those characters again and again and again. And there's a reason that none of the games really changed after this for the next 40 years.
I do like that it redeems Quark finally, like it finishes his arc.
And that's one of those things that like the undertone of Ratchet and Clank 1 through 3 is that Ratchet and Clank are the protagonists, but the main character of the story is technically kind of Quark, because you see him in the middle of his fall from grace. Not even like as he's hit rock bottom, not even as he's like starting to fall. He has already been corrupted in Ratchet 1. In Ratchet 2, given it was ham-fisted and forced because they just wanted more Quark, he's the villain. Right. In Ratchet 3, you see him go insane from trying to be the hero that he always wanted to be as a fake TV hero. And you see him come from rock bottom all the way up and figure out how to be the hero that, as Clank says, he always wanted to be, or he's always been seen himself as. And that redemption is so well done.
It's when you put it like that, it also makes it really interesting that he's not in Deadlock, the fake TV hero game.
Yeah, but it's also part of the joke, to be fair, is they were like, where were all the heroes? Why was I not there?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Because they saw him as a joke in universe, which is great. I hate that this went up against Battlefront 2, because that is one of those games that needs more people to play it even today, even though it did really, really well. It sold like millions of copies. It's just
you don't hear a lot about it these days.
Yeah.
It's no Guitar Hero 3.
It's on Steam. You can play it online still. It's super easy to turn on and just play it on your computer. Please.
I didn't even know that, actually.
Yeah, it's on Steam. It usually goes for like $5 most of the time.
Yeah.
Well, heck. All right.
So we will tally up our votes here. Nico, you were for Guitar Hero.
Guitar Hero. Justin, I think I got to go with the Arbiter of Taste.
Were you Battlefront 2?
I don't think he knows.
Yeah.
You're Battlefront 2. And then the three of us were
killing
Ratchet.
Me.
You were Ratchet 3, right, Chris?
No.
You were Guitar Hero?
Listening to Nico and Justin talk more about Guitar Hero 3 actually like unrattled a lot my memory of just how big it was between me and my friends at school at the time, and like how much I actually did play Guitar Hero 3. I just don't remember a lot of it, but especially as Nico talked, I actually kind of swung toward Guitar Hero 3. So we'll see where that leaves things.
So
that leaves it 2-2-1.
2-2-1.
Yeah, so I'm the deciding vote now. You made me choose between three of my favorite games on this bracket, but I think Guitar Hero 3 does edge it for me. So
let's go.
I'm excited
put it
for
through.
it to get bodied in the
upset.
next round.
Yeah, that's
Not
fine.
what I
I'm
Put it
fine
expected
with
through.
to
that.
see when looking at that bracket. That was not the result I expected, actually, but
Yeah, this is
I'm
the
upset.
only. This is the only thing I wanted was for it to win one and just get the nod.
Yeah,
And not only did it win, it won a really tough
solely
bracket.
thanks to
Yeah.
you. This is going to be our least liked video because my audience is going to see it. So you're welcome.
to be like Ratchet. Why didn't
How?
the Kevin guy vote for Ratchet? Why
And
didn't
he
he make
did.
it
My
win?
100-something thousand subscribers of Ratchet and Clank fans, they're going to tune in and see it lose to fucking Guitar Hero.
Well,
Yeah,
good.
that's what it is.
And
the
they're
first
gonna-
round.
It is.
And
Yeah,
then we're
Guitar
gonna
Hero,
find
dude.
you.
Science.
I mean, yeah,
Science.
science.
You know,
Guitar Hero.
genuinely the biggest upset of this bracket. I'm on. Honestly, I still stand by Battlefront 2. I think that one should have went through, but
It's not as bad as our culinary ranking.
yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, Justin's gonna get the brunt
Yeah.
of it because he's the one that was
That's
the
true.
deciding vote.
That's true.
The culinary ranking was insane. So yeah.
Our next bracket is going to be easy. Shadow of the Colossus versus God of War 2 versus Crash Twinsanity. Brody, you got 2 minutes. Go.
You're damn right it's gonna be easy. Crash Twinsanity is here, and it's here to win. listen, Shadow of the Colossus. Who cares? Oh, it's a big empty field, and there's some guys you fight. I don't care. God of War 2. Oh, it takes all my powers away from God of War 1. Why would I even want to play that? Crash Twinsanity. Big open world. You're Crash Bandicoot. You're jumping around. You get to play as Cortex. You get to play as both of them at the same time. They're in a ball. They're fighting. You're playing like Monkey Ball and Crash Bandicoot. What is going on? I don't know. It's amazing. There's some evil birds from another dimension. Go get them. Get the gems. Find the secret ending where Cortex spanks Crash. That's on the back of the box. It's censored by the game rating. Fantastic game all the way through. Best Crash game. No contest. Have I gone a minute? I don't know. But it's not a question. It's Crash Twinsanity. Shadow of the Colossus is actually a great game. I don't stand by that bit at all. But Crash Twinsanity.
Yeah, I'm voting for God of War 2.
Chris, I will go to you next because I remember we were talking about the PS4 version of Shadow of the Colossus at one point. And I remember this distinctly because it made me laugh because I was like, oh yeah, I was playing through it and like I tried it on PS2, I tried it on PS3, it didn't click. The PS4 version, I finally got it. And then you then finished it and you made a video titled, I finally get Shadow of the Colossus. And I was like, hey, he stole my title. Incredible. Because I was never going to make that video. So what are your thoughts on these three?
It did encapsulate how I felt because, I never got it until then. So does that mean I can count it?
So I think
the PS2 version?
I think it's tough with this one because the PS3 version of that game is just a remaster and also has issues because it goes to 60 FPS. I think that the PS4 game is the only viable way, if you didn't play it in 2005, to understand what that game meant in its era. Because that game has an incredible vibe to it that you cannot really... You don't understand it as well if you've already played open world games from the following console generation where you're like, oh, this is just open and empty too. But like in Shadow of the Colossus, that is the point. It makes you sit there and think, and it makes you take everything in. And the game making you figure out, each boss as you go. There's something that you lose within a year of that game coming out because if you didn't play it right in that moment, you'd see it as just another game due to it being a ugly kind of world because of it being a PS2 game. So I think in this case, the PS4 version is a valid, if you didn't play it at the time, it's a valid way of
it's built
perceiving
on
it.
the same code base, right? So
yeah, because it was the team that ported it to PS3. It's Bluepoint. They ported it to PS3 and then used the port to then remake the game from the ground up.
Yeah. So I'm going to count it. Screw it. Yeah, it was an easy game to not like for a long time because of everything like you mentioned, and I think the controls are really easy. They make you fall off the game pretty easily if you just kind of go in and don't just give it some time and a chance, right?
Yeah.
And maybe overlook maybe kind of how bad it is. That's up to each person's interpretation, I think. But that is where I finally got it, and I did finally click in with a lot of the people who do like that game a lot and sing its praises, where I just finally was like, okay, I get it. I see how taking away so much of what you would traditionally have in a video game and making you hyper focus in on
one thing,
destination, journey, how you get there, and what you were doing each time. And the twist at the end becomes more effective due to that, right? Like it did finally work for me in that sense.
It's
I understand
hard,
people who don't like it.
It's hard to perceive an artsy-fartsy game when you're like, oh, this is kind of ugly. So when you see it pretty, you're like, oh, okay, I get it now.
Yes, this is art, actually. Yeah. God of War 2 I haven't played. It's probably fine.
Okay.
Crash Twinsanity, I feel conflicted. I feel like I should like it. I like the music. I like the idea of it. I don't like playing it. It was to the point where even on FTCR, plug, we had a developer reach out to us who worked on the game and was like, I love your guys' channel. It'd be so cool if you played the game and then maybe came up with some questions like for me and people on the team as you did it, right? So we went down to do that recording and start to get that process. Because like, wow, what a cool thing. And none of us had any fun with it. And that never even went anywhere because we were just like, gosh, do we even have anything nice to say?
Yeah.
Sorry, Brody.
Oh.
So Shadow of the Colossus gets my vote.
Nico, what?
I should be biased. But I'm
I
not.
think Kratos is an incredibly influential video game character.
You gotta preface that because you've only played the PS4 game and Ragnarok. You think the Kratos that has a character is an influential character?
He's a little different on God of War 2.
I know enough.
PS2 Kratos is bad, and I don't like him.
I know enough about the story that it's like fine, but it's just aesthetically, right? Like the way that he looks is very iconic. And I don't think I can say the same for any of the other folks in this bracket. Not even Crash.
Not even Crash Bandicoot?
No, because the orange and yellow color scheme is like everywhere.
Where did you get yellow from?
The stomach, the underbelly. But
you're not thinking about the blue from his pants.
You're not thinking about his tribal tattoos in this game.
No, no. That's Mind Over Mutant and Clash of Titans.
Either way,
please continue.
I don't think. I'm not a good person for this part of the bracket. I'm voting God of War because it's the one that I have seen the most info on because of all the lore videos I've watched for that.
Science.
Yeah.
I actively dislike God of War 2 on the PS2. I dislike it so much that I still have yet to play the PS4 versions of God of War. Even though everyone has told me those games are phenomenal, I hate Kratos that much.
You're not a AAA guy anyway.
I'm playing Spider-Man in 10 days.
No, you're not.
You're right, I'm not.
By the time this comes out, Spider-Man will be out, so you will not be
exactly.
playing
I
it.
say you own the PS4 one to reinforce that like you could play it any moment. And
I have it. I got it for
choose
free.
Not to.
I literally was given the game for free at launch, and I have yet to play it.
I'll throw out
for
those watching this as for those watching this, if you were watching this the day that this video or audio podcast comes out, Justin and Brody over at twitch.tv/crub_official, barring anything changing, they will be playing It Takes Two for episode 2 of Weekend at Brody's, where we're going to each play some games with Brody sometimes, maybe. Justin is showing off
on the day that Spider-Man comes out.
Yeah, on the day that Spider-Man comes out.
And
So
Mario!
you won't be doing anything. Justin was just showing off his God of War PS4 statue with God of War with Kratos and Boy.
Why is it so dirty?
Because it sits in the corner of my room. I don't look at it.
How do you feel about the other two games then, Justin?
I love Shadow of the Colossus. That was one of the first games I ever streamed on Twitch. Phenomenal game. I'm really excited for them to maybe do something more with it. I got to play Last Guardian. What the hell is Crash Twinsanity? What is Crash Twinsanity? I don't even know how to say it. Shadow of the Colossus wins.
All right.
Crash Twinsanity was really the Jack one of the Crash games.
Oh, thank God. I've never played that either.
They were similar.
It makes sense.
I get what he's saying.
If Crash Twinsanity had Yeet in it and it was called Crash Twizsanity, I'd vote for it.
But there was a 1-1 and at least 2, and I'm in favor of Shadow of the Colossus over these two. So that is going to be the winner of that round.
Shadow of the Colossus is just about the only game that could have came up here that I'm not going to end up like. I'm not going to be like, oh man, that shouldn't have won. It's so good. It's so good.
And now the most random of these randomized bracket listings here. We got Spider-Man 2 versus Final Fantasy X versus Okami.
All right, well, just get Final Fantasy X out of here right at the beginning.
Yeah, first off,
it's loses automatically up against those two.
Only reason people like Final Fantasy X is because one guy laughed once. Spider-Man 2
that's from that
is a game that people still use as a benchmark for swinging mechanics.
Yeah.
It is that influential. Spider-Man 2 had Tobey Maguire. It was the best game that it was ever made.
They only use Spider-Man 2 as a sample for swinging mechanics because that's the only game anyone played from the Spider-Man series. So let's get that out of the way.
That's not true. Because people like the PS1 version that was trash.
Well, no, because people ended up playing Spider-Man 3 and like the Amazing Spider-Man games after, and they just they had actively bad.
You say people, do you mean you?
No,
I
actually did.
I
actually did that. What Brody just said.
You know, Spider-Man 2 is probably the best licensed game ever made outside of Ratchet and Clank Remake, which I mean is technically licensed because there was a movie because of it.
What about
what
about Spider-Man PS4?
No, because that's actually like so it stands on its own. Spider-Man 2 was made for the movie.
Guitar Hero 3 though.
No, that one is licensing things to make it. Spider-Man 2 was made
sometime.
No. I don't know that I
see the difference.
I think he's talking about specific. See, licensed game is a bit of a misnomer. He's thinking like
tie-in,
like movie tie-in game.
Okay,
yes.
Okay.
And absolutely, it's the best movie tie-in game.
That's what I meant to say.
It's also one of the best superhero games ever made. Like it is.
Tell me more than two things about it. Everyone knows Pizza Time, and they know swinging, and that's it.
Okay, you can't hedge your bet. You can't hedge the bets.
Like, how is that hedging my bet?
Because you're saying, tell me two things about it, and then you said you can't use these two things.
Yeah, because that's the only two things you know.
I mean, if it's so good, there should be plenty of things to say.
Yeah, well, okay. When you're swinging to the Statue of Liberty to go face off against Mysterio because he takes over an army of drones in what is supposed to be the narrative of Spider-Man 2, the Sam Raimi movie,
which didn't happen in the movie.
Exactly, I love that. It's added texture.
Chris,
I liked the tutorial area in that game, Chris.
Is this the one where he goes to a theater and aliens invade, or was that Spider-Man 3?
Yes. That's this one. Because
Mysterio
takes over a theater.
Illusions.
He lights the whole thing on fire, and then aliens show up. It's great.
I wanted to give this game some grace because I thought that might have been from 3, but I see that this was my rental game, and that's when I stopped playing the game because I didn't know what was happening. And I couldn't.
No, that's fair because that just didn't happen in the movie. Like period. Just straight up didn't happen.
You can't call it a tie-in game then. Nothing from the movie happens.
No. Everything from the movie happens. They just add more things to make it a better game with more stuff to do.
They even have Tobey Maguire giving voiceover and Bruce Campbell.
Oh, great!
As
I'm
the
so
narrator.
glad that there's bored Tobey Maguire.
Yeah, it's so
reading lines out of a tin can microphone.
and Bruce Campbell just insults you the whole game. Like, who wouldn't want that?
They even have the digital tutorial area from the movie. Don't you remember?
Where you find all the green tokens all over the floor.
Find the green tokens on the buildings.
If this was Spider-Man 2, the movie, I would kill someone to defend it. But
I just want to say, for the record, Nico, you got what you wanted with Guitar Hero, so don't make this the double most disliked video. Because
I don't know that I'm.
These two
I don't know
are
that I have an opinion on.
Like these two, like this is already a 2. So I'm gonna make a point here. I like Okami. Game's too damn long, for one. So Final Fantasy X, I know you don't like turn-based games, Nico. You would really like the story of Final Fantasy X, and I've told you about it before.
I believe that. I do believe
that's
that.
one of the few turn-based RPGs I think you would really, really enjoy.
Yeah, I think I am going to abstain from voting this round unless
You're the tiebreaker.
That's not how that's going to...
I'm sorry to say.
It's going to be... I don't know what Chris is going to vote, but that might make it
I'm going to have some discussion to actually figure out my vote on this one because
me too.
Because Okami is the best Legend of Zelda game ever made. Like,
yeah, and also I didn't really enjoy Spider-Man 2 on the PS2. I thought it was very hard. So that's
hard.
Yeah.
Bro, you fight the rhino. That's not even in the movie.
Okay.
God,
yeah,
Brody,
I don't think I got much
briefly on Okami because we're going over time here.
Yeah, well, Okami is it's a game that hits you right off the bat with so much charm, and it's a game that like fits right in. Like, I didn't play it during my days of actually playing like PS2 games, like when that was like my life. I went back and played it, kind of thing. But like, my God, I couldn't believe what I was missing out on, because that game, like, it takes you to a place and it put like. I don't know. The combat is amazing. I'm not one for like Devil May Cry or like hack and slash games, but like it just works in that game where you can basically avoid it if you want and do it if you want. And then doing like just the Legend of Zelda parts of it, like as a 3D Zelda game of that kind of like persuasion, like your standard sort of Ocarina of Time to Skyward Sword affair. It's just the best of that kind of experience that you get. Plus, you get to play as a dog and run fast, and everything looks amazing. Like that's the, like Japanese like drawn art style that they just perfectly translated and has somehow never been able to like be done again by anyone else aesthetically, like to that degree. Like it's a beautiful game. It feels fantastic to play. Spider-Man 2 is amazing, but I don't know. I could be convinced either way on this one.
So. Two things. One, you saying it's the best Zelda game makes me think we should do one of these for Zelda and Zelda-like experiences. Because there's a lot we can go through.
I'm not on that one.
No, someone would die.
Because I'm not on that one. I'm not going on that one. But we could get Trav on that one, and we could do that. We can make that work.
Okay.
And Sean. Anyway, so what I was going to say is I do enjoy Okami. I don't like how goddamn long the intro is, because that intro is as long as people say the intro for Twilight Princess is. And it really, I know every time I've gotten past it, I've really enjoyed it. But by that point, I'm already kind of tired, and I put it down, and then I just don't pick it back up. And that's my fault. Also kind of the game's fault, to be fair. It takes a long time to get going. And that's kind of my knock against it. Chris, what do you think? What are your thoughts?
I really wish I've played more than the first few hours of FF10. Someday I'll make time for it.
That's another one I think you'll really enjoy. Like
I think so too.
Like that
I think
game,
I would actually like it.
That was my first proper like non-Pokemon JRPG after Legend of Dragoon. I picked that up shortly thereafter, and it's not like it's a similar experience. And mechanically, obviously, it kind of is, because 10 goes back to pure turn-based, and it kind of follows actually some similar story beats at points, like not like in the grand scheme, but like here or there. A lot of the faux religion stuff kind of gets played up in 10, because 10's very like 10 got hate from like Bible studiers, because it's very like, hey, this religion we've all been believing this whole time, turns out they lied to us. And that's a lot of the plot of 10. And it's like the question of faith, and it's just really, really interesting. And I was so compelled by it. I didn't end up getting I got to the final boss, and then I found out that I was under-leveled for it, despite having grinded.
Classic.
And then I went back to other areas to grind, and I found out, because I was playing the PS3 version, that's the international release that has the Dark Aeons, so other dark versions of the summons you already fought that are like 50 levels higher will just show up in some areas. So I couldn't really go back anywhere to grind, so I stopped playing there and watched the ending, because I was already at the point where I could have beaten that boss if I threw my head at a wall, so I've beaten that game in my mind.
No shame there.
I have some other things to say really quick about this. I've convinced myself, and actually you've convinced me, to think about this differently. In that I'm coming around to the Final Fantasy camp of it for multiple reasons. Number one is views. Number two, no, not really. Number one is that
gone by this point, it's fine.
Well, so here's the thing, right? First of all, think about Okami. My question is, who cares about that game?
Now
it's Brody. It's Brody and nobody else, right?
Apparently, not even Brody. He didn't even finish streaming it.
Right.
I didn't even get to talk.
Let me make the point. As opposed to Spider-Man 2 and Final Fantasy, long-running series that people have already been invested in, right? Not that that's a good case, but it is what it is.
You're correct, but the way you said it, Spider-Man 2 and Final Fantasy.
10.
No, but you said Spider-Man 2 and Final Fantasy as a series.
Spider-Man 2 is a long-running series. The amount of games and movies with that name.
And comics?
That is true, yeah. Well, so here's my thing, right? Here's what brought me around. If they were to remake Final Fantasy X in the same way they did with 7 Remake, I'd play it. If they were to remake the Spider-Man 2 movie tie-in game Sam Raimi specifically, I would not play it. And that's my metric. I can't forgive Lightning being a Cloud ripoff, which I do know about,
That's 12.
That's
Who cares?
10 is Titus.
Okay,
10
no,
is,
yeah.
Again, I
Titus.
love that
I like
my time
Titus.
was taken away for this.
Sorry,
Whatever is happening.
Chris,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I'm voting for Final Fantasy, Chris.
I vote Okami.
Yes. Spider-Man 2 is the best game on this list, and I will not hear any differently.
So, I'm in Final Fantasy X. So, we got a 2-2-1 either way here.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Final Fantasy fans have made their point quite poorly and rudely, so I think it should defer to Okami.
So this is interesting because whichever one I pick is then going to go up against a tiebreaker against Final Fantasy. Justin's saying Spider-Man. So Justin's saying Spider-Man 2. Chris is saying Okami.
Yeah.
It's difficult. I'm gonna.
Mr. Aziz is not going to be happy if you don't come back with a pizza box.
Look, it's a 30-minute guarantee, okay?
It's
I don't know about you, Parker, but I believe in promises.
Such a tough call.
You're fired.
Both of those games are amazing. I'm gonna have to go with. Okami's
There's
amazing.
like a wrong answer here. I hope you don't pick it.
Listen, Okami's an amazing game. I love it. I love it to death. But Spider-Man 2 was just one of those games in my childhood.
Boys!
I have to give it to Spider-Man 2.
The power of the sun in the palm of my hand. Is Talcock even in that game? I don't think I
Yes,
even
he
saw
is.
him.
He's at the end of the game. He's the main
at
villain.
the end.
Yeah, you actually do the scene where the mask flies off of. Spoilers for Spider-Man 2.
It is a fantastic game. Like the stuff that they add in, like the fact that you're fighting all of those villains in the course of what is supposed to be Spider-Man 2 is hilarious. But I view it's one of those few movie tie-in games, like the Cars video game or the Bugs Life video game, where I consider it to be essential to the movie viewing experience. Like you watch
Brody,
the
shut
movie,
the fuck up.
then
Chris,
you
what are
play
you
the
voting
game.
for?
So
Intelligence is a gift to mankind. I still vote Okami. I don't change my thought, I guess.
Oh,
am I supposed to
something's
choose
gotta
my
get
vote?
picked. Yeah,
So
something's gotta
it's
get picked.
2-2. It's a tie.
merger.
So it's
merger.
We can't merge.
Merger.
Well, hold on. There is possibly an answer to this, which could be ranked choice voting.
We're not whipping out, Brody. We
Well,
are
because
already
I think Okami wins if that happens.
Twice,
right?
please.
Like,
I want
Chris,
this
please.
round over.
twice in the span of 2 minutes, Brody. Shut the fuck up. We're not doing ranked choice voting. We're already over time. So, Chris, your vote can still be for Okami, but we do need a winner.
Oh, how is this my fault? What did I do? Final
You didn't pick
Fantasy.
Spider-Man.
I don't care. I made my vote.
This is absolute malarkey.
I know I
Rage,
played Spider-Man
Chris.
2. I played a little bit of Final Fantasy 10. And between those two, I give it to Final Fantasy 10. If that's the option.
I do not accept
When you
the
play it
result
more,
of this
you will
vote.
you would be proud of your vote in retro.
I feel like
down
if
the
I
road.
played both of
You
those
didn't
in
even
the
finish
next
the
week,
game.
Yeah,
You
sorry
did
for
not
turning
finish
heel on
Spider-Man
you,
2,
Chris.
Justin.
I
Shut
did!
There's no
I beat that
world
game
where you
twice.
finished that
Justin, you don't
game.
finish any video game,
Yeah.
okay? Be
I
quiet.
beat that
Don't tell
game
me.
twice.
No.
Sayonara Wild Hearts.
Don't tell me that you finished. It took you 8 months to finish a 30-minute game, but oh yeah, I finished Spider-Man 2 with 12-hour.
I did. And I
Spider-Man
100%
game that
of that
plays
game.
like shit. Nah.
I 100%.
Well,
I went to the
it's-
comic shop. I got all the upgrades.
To be fair, it's only because Justin doesn't get invited to parties.
That's true.
They don't invite me, so I keep playing the game. It's the best.
All right, so we're now on to the semifinal triple threats of both of these games, both these brackets. We have SSX 3 versus Sly 2 versus Metal Gear Solid 3 on the first side here.
That's a tough one.
Justin, you're going first.
The same reasoning that I voted for SSX the first time. It's the only one I played, so I'll vote for that one.
Brody,
Sly 2 sweeps. It's not even a question.
Nico,
SSX.
Chris.
Oh, okay. I need like an instant replay of like my eyes opening up, like, oh, this is happening. Okay. Wait. No. Shit. I was sitting here like, God, MGS3 or Sly 2. What would I pick?
That's what I thought this was going to end up
I'll-
being.
I'll-
Both such
switch-
lovely games.
I'll defer. I'll switch to MGS if that's going to be the way we play it.
What's not? I'm going to go with Sly 2
not.
because it's the only correct answer, I guess. Even though MGS3 is like cut below, right, in my book.
Thank God.
You could have voted for SSX and just seen the world burn.
Look, I have to save this list. Apparently, it just keeps coming to me. I'll keep doing it.
I'm not.
Sly 2.
Yeah. Thank God.
It's the right choice.
There's not really much discussion to be had because they both voted for SSX. It would have been really interesting if we discussed Metal Gear Solid 3 versus Sly 2, but I guess that's not happening. This is science. This is science from real PS2 experts.
Press circle.
Yo, especially me, baby.
I really would have liked that discussion, and I'm sure chat would have too, and I'm sure the viewers would have, and listeners would have. It's not going to happen. Moving on, we have Guitar Hero 3 versus Shadow of the Colossus versus Final Fantasy X.
Shadow of the Colossus.
I had like hairs on the back of my neck raising. Like, if Justin goes, but what about Spider-Man 2? I would just reach through Discord and just pull him out Bugs Bunny style, just whack him on the floor. This one is tough because the best passion pitch I heard for any game today was Nico on Guitar Hero 3. But I know it's not a better game than the other two. But I feel most warmly toward Guitar Hero 3 at the moment. But since I'm talking anyway, if I had to vote, I can only lean into Shadow of the Colossus just as I haven't played enough FF10. So that's my vote.
Justin.
Spider-Man 2. So
if it wasn't a lot of work to fix this, if I kicked you from the call right now, I would kick you from the call. I want you to know that. If it wasn't more work on me, actually,
Mr. Electric,
you know what?
Send him to
it
the
is more work for me.
No!
I don't care. I'm kicking him from the call. That's.
I got kicked.
He's back. He's back. Okay.
Turn your camera back on. Yeah.
Okay. Oh man. I'm gonna say Guitar Hero 3.
You're a scientist. You have an undergraduate and a master's study doctorate. I didn't go to college. I don't know what these words mean. But remember, you are a scientist.
I'm gonna personally say Guitar Hero 3 because I would say Shadow of the Colossus, but it's the PS4 version. Guitar Hero 2 is actually a PS2 game, so I'll give it to that.
Don't say that. That undermines my vote.
I am also voting for Guitar Hero 3.
Like I said, with Shadow of the Colossus specifically, the PS4 version existing doesn't like replace the PS2 version. Like all it's doing is acting as a modern day appreciation for what the game was.
Yeah,
like,
and it's it's actually
think,
phenomenal.
Like I think if you played that game in 2005, if you played that game when you played like at the age at which you played Shadow of the Colossus PS4. If you were that age when you played Shadow of the Colossus in 2005 or 6, I think you would feel the same way. That's what I'm saying. I think so
too, honestly.
It's a very good translation.
Yeah, I do.
Because they don't change a single thing. It is
Shadow of the Colossus is one of those games that's just like this. I mean, I can see in this bracket, I don't think any of these games perhaps deserves the title of best PS2 game other than Shadow of the Colossus. Because it is such an immaculate piece of artistry and entertainment and everything. Like, there is nothing that quite does what it there's never been anything that it did at the time it came out. There's been nothing that really does what it does still to this day, even though many things have tried. It is a piece of beauty in the medium of video games that we do not often see.
You're telling me you didn't think Sonic Frontiers was a good follow-up to the thoughts of Shadow of the Colossus?
God.
Great soundtrack in that game.
Like, Shadow of the Colossus is one of the, like, all games are art, but Shadow of the Colossus is one of those games where you finish it and you go, like video game. Like, if you didn't think video games could be art before, you come out of that game thinking, yeah, they can.
I wrote my high school English thesis paper. It was supposed to be 10 pages. Mine ended up being 20. And part of it was this was when the game's art topic was like a big debate at this point. Mm-hmm. And Shadow of the Colossus was one of my points towards like, yes, 100%. First off, no fucking duh they are. Second off, here's proof that they are like art, not just a form of art.
Also, it was 30 pages.
Was it?
Yeah.
No, because it was a 10-page.
No. Yours was 30. It was supposed to be 10.
I don't think it was 30. Because I have a draft that was 18, and it was only the last bit was cut off.
Interesting. I thought it was 30 pages.
I don't think it was 30.
Interesting.
Either way, I've been on that boat for so long because it just is the case. And I even think Last Guardian, not to talk too much about it, but I think that game follows up on Shadow of the Colossus really, really well, as much as people don't like that game, because it does follow the same sort of concept of we're going to take what you perceive to be a game and flip it on its head. And this time the task is you have to have a giant dog and you have to train a giant dog, which is really hard. So yeah, I think that the trio of Team Ico games are just, there's nothing like them. There's not a single thing like them. So Shadow of the Colossus would be my vote as well.
Yeah, Shadow of the Colossus is a stroke of beauty in the gaming world, and I don't think that I don't think there's a better pick in this bracket, like not even by any metric.
We had 2 for Shadow of the Colossus on the bottom. We had Nico in Guitar Hero, and then the 2 of you on top. I think Chris, you were Shadow of the Colossus. Yeah. Justin, what are your thoughts? Are you still Guitar Hero because of the PS4 thing, or?
I mean, I am, but I am not upset as Shadow of the Colossus going through it all.
I'm also not upset at that, by the way.
I think it's I think it's genuinely a phenomenal game, and it more than deserves its spot in the final.
I suppose I'm mainly asking because I think a 4-1 Shadow of the Colossus sweep is more for the audience. We should know if it's a 3-2 or a 4-1.
Can we find the votes?
Sure, take it. I don't know. 4-1.
Okay, because it'd be very interesting just to see how like this breaks down if it was like a 3-2, because Guitar Hero almost took it somehow.
It's really good.
It's
Guitar Hero 3 is really good.
Yeah. It's I mean it's because of the cultural impact. That's it.
It's like comparing rhythm games to like an actual piece of art.
Yeah, right. It is tough to, and I will say it is very tough to compare these things. For me, I just think it was very impressive that they were able to put together a playlist that pretty universally everyone agreed that these are good songs. So continue. Let's move on to the next round. That's all I think one of the things to say about that.
Also, with Guitar Hero, is it is the third game. They had 3 games to get to that point. Shadow of the Colossus, given, is their second game, but it's the first game they make in that style. And that's what also makes it like they only did 1 of these. Like, yes, they made other games.
Yeah.
Nothing's ever come close to what that game does.
No other game does even close to what it does.
Yeah, nowhere in my dissenting opinion will I put down Shadow of the Colossus. I think it's perfectly deserving of that spot.
I think we would have gotten here either way. Even if Guitar Hero hadn't made it onward, I'm gonna be frank. But for my audience's sake, don't kill us that Ratchet didn't make it past Guitar Hero. Please.
That was my fault. You can blame
me.
If
Ratchet 3 was more gooder.
I guess. You know? I guess if I had gone with Ratchet 2 over 3, that may have changed things.
I think it might have.
But Ratchet 3 is the highest rated. Ratchet 3 is the highest rated one, so that's the one that people always put as the top 10 PS2 game. But retroactively, that game is seen worse than 2, even though at the time it was not at all seen as worse than 2. It's interesting.
I think one of the disservices that game has done to it is being the third game on the PS3 collection. So if people are playing them all in a row, by the time they get to it, it's also the worst looking
by that point. Yeah, because all the bugs that doesn't help. So our finals here. We have Sly 2 versus Shadow of the Colossus.
But I think this is a fantastic final bracket. I honestly don't think it could have been better.
I'm gonna edge.
No, genuinely.
I'm gonna edge the audience though, because first, wild card round: SSX 3 versus Metal Gear Solid 3 versus Guitar Hero 3 versus Final Fantasy X 3.
Guitar Hero 3.
Brody,
Crash Twinsanity.
You pick one of the 4.
I honestly, you spoke so fast I didn't register it.
It's the 4 losers. So SSX 3. Metal Gear Solid 3, Final Fantasy X, Guitar Hero 3.
Metal Gear Solid 3.
Metal Gear Solid 3.
Justin.
Guitar Hero. Yeah, Guitar Hero.
Yeah, Kevin, you're the tiebreaker.
You suck. I
I didn't play any of the other games.
Maybe you should have done your research, Justin. I don't know.
Maybe I should have. I don't know. I didn't play Sly 2 either.
I would have said Final Fantasy X, but Metal Gear Solid 3 has to be there.
That's valid. That's valid.
So that's gonna.
I am impassioned to music, so I must vote for Guitar Hero 3. I hope you understand.
I don't.
I'm just saying, you got a pretty good soundtrack.
So our finals are Sly 2 versus Shadow of the Colossus. This is a really interesting discussion to have. I think we've said a lot about these games, so we should focus on pitting them head to head for this final round.
Yeah, I think you can kind of do that with these two games as well.
Yeah. Nico, I'm going to save you for last because you've played neither.
I mean, I can just go quick if you want me to.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't have much to say about either of these. I think that the aesthetic and the impact of Sly was maybe broader, and the appeal was maybe a little broader than that of Shadow of the Colossus, if I had to guess. And so for that reason, Sly is what I would go with because the aesthetic speaks to me a little more.
I think it's interesting because no one's ever really asked for another Shadow of the Colossus.
Yeah.
If you think about it, like I'm sure there are people that have, but no one has ever gone out of their way to be like, man, I want more of that. Like that game is just enough that like, even if you do want more, you're like, no, that game did what it was supposed to do. And even if you did have the extra 10 bosses they were going to have, no one asks for a Shadow of the Colossus 2 because it would just diminish the existence of it. People continue to ask for a Sly 5, given it's a very small, loud group of people, but...
Wasn't the whole point of Shadow of the Colossus that in between the bosses you hate yourself?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think I hate myself after. I don't think I would hate myself after playing Sly. So
the thought I was formulating was like Sly 2 I'd want to play for a lifetime, but Shadow of the Colossus I'd want to play once and think about for a lifetime. And I was trying to find in myself which I prefer out of those, and I'm not sure.
I really could be convinced either way.
I think
it's such a tough call.
I think
we do the YouTube thumbnail pose.
I think Shadow of the Colossus is... I don't even think it's a better game, actually. I think it's a better game to recommend in the case of showing a game as a higher level art form. I think that's what I recommend that game as. I think that it's hard to put that against Sly 2, where I'm like, that game can be played by children today, and there is zero question that they will get it, they will enjoy it, it will respect them as players. Because that's the thing that Sly 2 does so well, is where you had Jack going super edgy, where you had Ratchet going for more butt jokes, essentially, mostly. It was just mostly crude humor and, anti-capitalist, anti-consumer humor of sorts. Those things are seen in media nowadays anyway. Like, you see that anti-consumerist cynicism in other forms of children's media anyway. That's all that we consume at this point. Whereas Sly is just a gripping story about this group of friends working together throughout whatever hardship they find and teaming up and making new allies, going through this big, massive conspiracy of sorts. And the game will throw wrenches at you as a player and say, hey, we're going to permanently change how one character is seen or how all three characters are seen over the course of this game. They don't avoid, like, it's not like, we're gonna hurt you but not kill you. These characters could die, and they treat it with that level of respect for the player. And I think that I don't think any of the other of the trio of Ratchet, Jack, or Sly, neither of the other two do that to the same degree. I think that even if I like Ratchet and Clank, pick a game, I like that game more personally because I played it more. Sly 2 is a top 5 PlayStation 2 game. I said that when we first got to Sly 2, and I think there's only a couple games I would ever put above it, and one of them would probably be like a Metal Gear Solid once I've played them. One of it would be maybe a Shadow of the Colossus, depending on the scope of the discussion. But like you said, Chris, like Shadow of the Colossus, you play once, you might come back to it every couple years, not every like 5-10 years. just because you're like, I don't remember a lot of this now. I know the gist, and once you know what's coming, it doesn't take away from it, but it makes it a little easier to appreciate the little details, but you'll never have that same experience again. In Sly, I've had a better experience every time I played Sly 2. Every single time I've gone back, I love that game more because of how well it holds up as a game, how well it treats all three of its protagonists, how well it treats all of the villains besides Arpeggio, but that's kind of the point with him. And it makes all of them so memorable that any one of them could come back and be the final boss of a Sly game. Mm-hmm. And they're just chapter bosses. Like, that's incredible.
Come back and join the team.
Yeah, or that. Yeah.
That happened too. Yeah. Pretty cool.
Really cool.
It's why Chris and Brody and I have been yelling at Justin for years to stream Sly 2, because he streamed Sly 1 and he just hasn't gone to 2. And like 2 is a game that like this boy will love this game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and what a step up from 1 it is as well. Like,
yeah.
If
like in some respects, Ratchet, Jack, and Sly all kind of changed form in their second game in some way. Like, it was in some cases more drastic than others, but Sly went from being like just sort of a Crash Bandicoot kind of linear hallway game to its own like unique experience that just like gives nothing else is quite like Sly 2 other than, you know, Sly 3 and 4, which are trying to emulate it.
Yeah.
Like,
and
Sly 2
then, like, I almost wonder, like, Sly 1 is what I always called Crash 4 but stealth. Sly 2 is what Assassin's Creed would become mechanically.
Mm-hmm.
That tracks.
Yeah.
Like,
and it still, I think, beats Assassin's Creed out at what it does.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I feel like if they were to remaster Sly 2 in some way, I would be inclined to play that series more so than a Shadow of the Colossus, which they already did remaster, and I have no inclination to play.
Yeah,
I mean, it's got a cel shaded style, so generally, like the visuals hold up to the point where, other than Sly 1, maybe I don't think you need to update 2 and 3.
And even 1 is only because they have younger looking character models because they're younger characters. Like, that's all.
They're just a little more like Sly looks a little strange in that one.
Yeah,
but,
a little awkward. Yeah.
That's my soapbox on Sly 2. It's not a knock on Shadow of the Colossus. You can't go wrong with either one. But I think if I was going to throw a PS2 at somebody and say, play this, these would both be there. But I can recommend Sly 2 to more people than I can Shadow of the Colossus.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think enough people are going to appreciate what Shadow of the Colossus does to stick with it. Especially if I'm throwing a PS2 at them. Because then this is where I'll come down to, if I'm throwing a PS2 at you, or a PS3 at you, like, Sly 2 is coming first, because Shadow of the Colossus is a harder recommendation. And it's only part of the reason that game could get as far as it does is because we can appreciate it because of the remake more.
Yeah. I think it's also worth noting, there might be an argument against Sly 2 being that, you have to play, you have to play 1 first. You don't whatsoever. You don't. I started with Sly 2. Sly 2, was, I think I played that before Ratchet. I think I played it before any of the other Sly games. I think the only game that came of the 3 was like Jack 3 is the one I played first, and then it was Sly 2. Like, Sly 2, you just jump right in from there, and you don't need that first game. It helps if once you go back and you play it, you're like, oh, that's cool that they actually have like elements that they're keeping. You don't need it. You go right in. It's a start to finish, just its own fantastic experience. Like, Sly 3, you kind of need Sly 2. But Sly 2, you don't need Sly 1.
Sly 3, you need Sly 1 more than you need Sly 2 even. That's kind of what's interesting about it, is they explain all of the Sly 2 stuff that they need to, but they bring in characters from Sly 1 again that you're just like, wait, who is this? Like, because they bring Mugshot in.
Nice.
And Panda King.
But no, 2 just completely stands on its own, to the point that the opening cutscene explains the plot of Sly 1. Like, they're like, no, we will make sure that you can start with 2.
Nice.
Yeah, and the benefit of like we praise Sly 2 story. I would also praise Sly 3 story, but 1's is very much like, you can do that. You can just put a blurb at the beginning of Sly 2 and understand it, because it's not that complex.
And even then, 3's you can kind of like in 4, they're just like, hey, here's what happened to you at 3. Don't worry about the rest. Like, that's
but I think it's like that degree of like jump in narrative quality is I think the focus there is just like, we took this game that could have just been this like, oh, fun little Saturday morning cartoon kind of vibe, and we kept that, but we also added so much more to it.
Yeah, I think, like I've said many times before that Ratchet 2, for example, is a perfect sequel for what it does. It's in the same vein as Sonic 2 to Sonic 1. It takes everything that people really liked about the first game at the time and immediately improves every bit of it, and makes it the series that we know. Sly 2 does that and is even better as a sequel to Sly 1. Like, I think Sly 2 might be one of the best sequels ever made.
Nice.
So we've gone back and forth. Top row, what do you guys think?
Sly.
Am I in the top row?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Oh, and on the Discord window, it's different. Shadow of the Colossus, thinking about it more and more, might be one of the best games I ever played. It is genuinely a phenomenal experience. I remember streaming the end of that game and then sitting in a Discord call with Chris right after I finished it, and we just talked about the game for hours.
Yeah.
Like, literally for hours.
It's one of those. It's so good.
I've never seen a game ever recreate the terms of like the amount of scope and size and how puny you really are in this world
You should play Sonic
compared
Frontiers.
to these. If
you just play Sonic Frontiers, I think you'll appreciate this game even more.
Sonic Frontiers might be the best PS2 game. It looks like one. I like that.
Look, if Wander in Shadow of the Colossus could grind rail on rails in the sky, I think this would be a very different discussion.
Yeah, that's fair. And they had Kellen
and if
Quinn.
there's EDM and butt rock all the time, I think that would help too.
Yeah.
And Kellen Quinn, of course.
Yeah.
This just the scope of how large these creatures are, and then the last things that are in this world, and you're one by one extinguishing all the life in this world to try and bring back somebody that is very near to the character, and that whole, and the entire, like, normally they would try and make it faster to you to get from fight to fight. In this game, they specifically say, you're going to ride there, you're going to put your sword up in the sky, your sword's going to guide you in the right direction, and you're just going to ride, and you're going to think about what you just did. And you're going to really just let it grip you and understand the consequence that you're really making in this world. That you're like, you've come here for a mission and you're taking care of it, but in the process of you doing that, you're literally crumbling everything around you. Your selfishness is creating this catastrophe for everything in the world.
It's an interesting distillation too, right? Of like, your only reason to do this is either because you're meant to, or it's just building on a classic video game trope of save the girl. You have no attachment to her.
You're told to. You're just told to do these things, and you don't question it. You
have just no attachment to her at all. So
while you were
why are you doing that?
I made Sonic Frontiers the winner.
Oh,
yeah, let's go.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm okay with that. Yeah.
The music in that game is absolutely phenomenal. It swells at perfectly moments. It really just, that is not. I love the music of Shadow of the Colossus. I will never listen to that music outside of playing the game. It has such a deep, intrinsic like connection to every single moment in that game that I don't think it would do it justice without having the visuals on screen with you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the main theme still slaps pretty hard. Yeah.
It does, but like, it's just like without the visuals of everything going on around it, it's just like a swelling orchestra behind you. You know what I mean? But
it's one of the first games to do cinematic music in that way.
Exactly.
Because a lot of games still
like
went
sound
for
for you to hear.
Quirky. Here's quirky music that's not necessarily like. It's video game music. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Croc theme.
Croc theme, exactly. So
Banjo-Kazooie.
Is that 4-1?
That's my soapbox I'm standing on for Shadow of the Colossus. It's a piece of art. It's more than a game. It's the game that you point to people to show you what the apex of the art form can be.
Apex.
It is Shadow of the Colossus.
No, Apex?
So, yeah, I mean, I honestly, to that point, I do agree. It's one of those games that, like, again, I used it as an example of games as art. I'm very curious what your opinion will be when you inevitably do play Sly 2. because
he'll be a changed man. He'll be like, oh my god, I really resonated with Sly and the things I was forced to do.
Yeah.
No, I can't. I'm not going to have the same.
Tells you to do these thieving actions. You don't question it.
Stealing
We'll do
really
a,
is bad.
Oh no!
We'll do a Crub.
Chris.
Oh no!
Oh, you're back,
Chris.
Chris has become El Gato.
Don't mind
El
me.
Gato.
Please continue.
Yeah,
I won't be able to enjoy the ending of Slide 2 as much because Kevin's ruined it, but that's fine.
No, you still will. That's fine. Chris, what were your final thoughts on this discussion?
Can you vamp?
I can. I switched. I can't. Yeah, that's fine.
I can do mine if that.
Yeah, wrap up, Brody.
Yeah.
Shadow of the Colossus is a game that I would have been more than happy to see come out of the top of this list and win. It is a fantastic game. It is beautiful. It is artistic. It is everything that I think we should be striving for, like artistically in this medium. But I knew where this bracket was going from the moment I saw it, and it was Sly 2 coming out on top. And it was never a question. It was never a question that Sly 2 was going to win.
What if
it deserves
Twinsanity
to be there.
If
Twinsanity had made it to the final round, well, then we'd be having more of a discussion, I think. But I think the matchup we have warrants the discussion. If Twinsanity was here, we would have been going for 2 more hours. So it's good that it's not. But Sly 2 deserves to be there. Sly 2 deserves to be the winner of this list. There is really no other pick that I would have been fine if Shadows of the Colossus was there. But Sly 2 is the win. It just is.
Yeah. I would like to take this time to apologize to the Ratchet fans.
It's too late. You're dead to them.
We're an hour later, dude.
They are not wrong.
Yeah, they're not here anymore.
They are not wrong. I just feel differently.
You're done. Honestly, half of them would have been like, no, Ratchet 3 is the worst one anyway, for some reason.
Yeah.
So it's fine.
That's fine.
Chris.
Shadow of the Colossus is a fantastic game for the medium, and I think you can't do what you did with that game again in a sense of how it affected players and how you continue to come to it and think about the medium. And that's great. But this is the gaming medium, and at some point I've just got to admit to myself, I like a replayable game. I like it short enough. I like it memorable. I'd go a lot more, but we're trying to not go on forever. Sly 2.
There you go, gamers.
Are we
for the reasons stated before by people much more eloquently?
I am going to say that this is where we will ask you, dear viewer, to nicely let us know in the comments what your top PlayStation 2 game is, and which of these brackets, which I'll put on screen one more time, which of these brackets would you have had picked the victor of? So would you have picked Silent Hill over SSX3 or Jack 1 over SSX3? Would you have picked Guitar Hero 3 over Sly 2 as the best PlayStation 2 game for some reason? You could have. You might have. You could have. So let us know in the comments.
Here's my question to the viewers. Here's my question to the commenters. How would you have structured this bracket in order to rig it so Twinsanity would win?
How would you?
Oh, that's a great question, actually. I would pose that we should put the blank bracket on Twitter and allow people to fill out their own and tag us.
We may do that. As
it's
a
already
reminder,
there, so if you want to do it, please continue,
cool.
Kevin.
As a reminder for everyone listening and watching, this was in fact still randomized. We did pick consensus picks, so games like a Kingdom Hearts that's not here, partly because Nico would have voted against it either way, so it was already rigged from the start, and partly because it was one of those games where both 1 and 2 kind of ate away from each other in terms of consensus best PS2 games, so neither of them made it. That's kind of what that came down to. So, your opinions could very well and should, in fact, be different from a lot of this. That's not a knock on Guitar Hero again. That's just a knock on why is Twinsanity here at all?
Well,
why is Spider-Man 2
that's a skill
here?
issue for Guitar Hero.
Don't talk shit on Spider-Man 2.
I'm going to talk shit on Spider-Man 2.
I'll be very nice. You can have your Slide 2. Don't talk shit.
I think we need to get Minnie on and hear his thoughts on Spider-Man 2 PS2.
Oh yeah.
That'd be great. That'd be a great. Minnie is in the live chat right now, and he hasn't said anything about Spider-Man. He's just ignored it completely. So
fair.
Yeah.
Nice.
So we're going to call it here. We did pick out a Patreon question of the week. We're going to save that for another week because we've already gone well over time this week. So we're going to, because this is a special extra length, extra girth episode of the Crubcast, we're going to say good night to you here. Live chat, stick around for the post show where we'll talk more about this stuff and give each other further anxiety about how bad this list has sometimes turned out. But the right answer still won, so I'm pretty happy. Yeah, that's everything. You know where to find us all. You can find us in the description, in the show notes, all of our ats, and you can find us and follow us and listen to things from us, whether it's videos or streams or music. You can do that. Make sure to hit the subscribe button if you are watching on the YouTube side of things. If you're listening in the audio realm, still subscribe on YouTube because it really does help. And if you go to crub.org, you can find all of our audio form podcasts wherever you like them, whether it's Apple Music or Spotify or even Amazon for some reason. That's a thing still. So you can do that. We will see you next week for another edition of the Crubcast, and let us know which system or series of games you'd like us to do this with next, whether it's Zelda or the GameCube or the N64 or anything of the sort. We will do it again.
Yeah.
And it might also still end up being the same length. So
hell, we can do this for movies and TV shows
yeah,
and
movies,
stuff too.
TV shows, whatever you want, gamers.